can anyone be born after having grown old? The story of Nicodemus appears in the Gospel of John. It's the latest of the Gospels to be written. It was written just around the year 100. It is the most poetic of the Gospels, the most mystical, and it's loved not only for this pre-dawn excursion Nicodemus makes, but for its soaring prologue. Because John does not begin the good news with the birth of Jesus or the angel's message to Mary, or even with Jesus' long Davidic lineage. John goes all the way back to the beginning, to creation itself, as though by clearing his throat, squaring his shoulders, and starting from the gate, he can capture it all. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, John writes, or rather sings. It's no wonder John holds fast to the story of Nicodemus, to whom Jesus says, "Begin again." John does so himself and soars from the page. Starting fresh, beginning new, taking off into spring with a clean slate is an invitation God offers every Lent. As the Dean reminded us Ash Wednesday, in this season, the Spirit leads us into a particular kind of wilderness, a space so empty and quiet you could hear a pin drop or the rush of wind. And there we examine ourselves and see what we're working with and imagine how we might come alive again with God. The snow has turned even our landscape into a kind of desert these past few weeks. But snow, I've been reminded, is a kind of poor man's fertilizer. It blankets the garden to insulate, to hydrate, and protect whatever it is that's happening underneath. There's a beauty to the snow and to the ice. Many of us have watched skater Alyssa Liu skate to gold this winter. If you don't know her, she's the one with the hair. And her story is a story about starting fresh. She began skating as a child, the daughter of a Chinese asylum seeker in California. Driven like her father, skating very soon consumed her childhood. "I was so into skating," she said, "that I really didn't do much else. It kind of becomes a blur. Going to the rink, going home, competing. When the pandemic closed the rinks, she remembers a certain sense of relief. She says she sometimes fantasized that they wouldn't open again. Of course they did, and she returned. She made the 2022 Olympic team. She competed in Beijing. But that spring, she retired at 16 years old. No injury, no defeat, simply a desire to stop. A strange quiet emerged. Alyssa trekked in Nepal. She prepared for college. She powered down her Instagram, so she neither saw nor heard anything about skating. And she surrounded herself with friends. 2 years later, one of them invited her to try something new, skiing. And she went for the first time. The adrenaline on the hill reminded her of something that she'd known years before. And she found herself lacing her skates up again. "I just wanted to see how they felt," she said. She hadn't worn her ice skates in 2 years. She was out of shape, but the jumps returned. Her movements were stronger and they were freer. That first session, she said, "I tried the double axel and I could do it." I was like, oh. It was still her on the ice, but it was also someone new, skating with a spirit of joy. This Lent, we've been carrying Wild Hope as our companion, stories of creatures vanishing down the path toward extinction. And we consider ways we might shore up their way back home. Among them is the Indiana bat, who knows about revivals. He withdraws every winter into a dark cave to hibernate. In the dark quiet, that little bat reminds me of Nicodemus, or maybe Alyssa. He relies not only on his own reserves of strength, but on the warmth and energy of his companions, shuffling around him, resettling themselves in the dark, until, when the time is right, a rustle of wings, first one and then another, fly out again under a spring moon. Nicodemus steps out in the night. Alyssa steps off the ice. The Indiana bat curls into darkness. Each of them knows a rhythm of retreat and return, a kind of inborn autonomic instinct for resurrection. In their surrender, they turn themselves over for God to make something new. Every Lent can be such a beginning for us. Quiet dismantling, a disarming, a return to the heart of things, even to the person we once were or hoped to be, to the power of youth. How can anyone be born after having grown old? Asks Nicodemus. With God, all things are possible, Jesus says. It's an Easter message, but it doesn't hurt to be reminded of it a little before the dawn, when it's still dark. To be reminded that the defining hope of our faith is resurrection, the power of God through love to make all things new. So that when Jesus steps from the tomb on Easter morning, we recognize the risen life as our own. Amen.